If you could streamline the permitting and interconnection process, you'd be able to have developers reach that DTI decision to invest much sooner. I've had crews lose 40-foot torque tubes. How do you lose a 300-pound, 40-foot long tube of steel?
Welcome to the Advisor AI Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Salvador, and on this show, we spotlight leaders, innovators, shaping the future of sustainability, green construction, and renewable energy. Today, we're exploring a tough but important topic: what's really behind project waste in the renewable sector. Waste can mean delays, cost overruns, or even inefficiencies that undermine the environmental goals we're all working towards. Joining me today is Collin Rhodes from Somos Solar in New Mexico, someone who knows firsthand the challenges of building renewables in one of the toughest environments in North America. Collin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jordan. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive into today's theme, I'd love for our listeners to hear your story. Collin, could you share just a little bit about your journey into
Sure.
renewables and perhaps the story behind Somos Solar?
Sure. Um, my background, I've been in the energy industry since the mid '80s. I was first job in a power plant was in 1988, and worked in many facets of the energy industry, fossil fuel powered, nuclear powered, hydro powered, most geothermal powered. I've been in a lot of them, and made my transition into purely renewable energy in about 2005 2006 timeframe. I actually got recruited into the industry, and I have been firmly established in the renewables energy since then. Um, I joined Somos Solar a few years back. Somos was a smaller residential EPC that was looking to pivot to CNI and utility scale. So they needed some folks with that kind of experience. My background probably helped both from energy standpoint, and both of my degrees are in engineering. So helpful. My address book probably helped them more. having connections, having quite a bit of connections in the industry. But 20 years will do that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that story. So, from your perspective, what was, the turning point you'd say that really confirmed that you were on the right path in the solar direction? You've been dealing with so many different types of energy. What made
Sure.
solar, kind of check that box?
Well, I had always wanted my father has been off grid. He lives in northern Arizona. He's been off grid for 50 years, almost 50 years, and so I've always been interested in renewable energy. It wasn't until the last couple of decades that it became, a viable career for an energy professional to really go into. The folks that were in solar and renewable energy before the early 2000s were really pioneers, and I have all the respect in the world for people like that. I came in when it became a little more mainstream. Um, that being said, I remember at my first company, I'd been there about a year, and we sold a project that was a megawatt. And we actually shut the whole company down and had a party because we sold a megawatt. We thought it was just mind boggling that at one project was a whole megawatt. And, we've since then I've done a residential job that was almost a megawatt.
It's awesome to see how far we've come in just a short while. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so Colin, maybe we can kind of get into things here. So, what, from your perspective, what are the biggest hidden causes of project waste you've seen in renewables, like especially in the New Mexico region?
So I was thinking about that uh, when I was having my coffee this morning, kind of previewing this discussion. And there's really a few different ways to look at it. There's the straight up waste stream that construction has, right? So you're going to have packaging and trash and things like that. But I think, in my mind anyway, the more interesting uh, subject to explore is waste in terms of inefficiencies. And what I have found in building probably a little more than a gigawatt worth of projects, um, is that inefficiency can cost you far more than any amount of trash you would ever have to deal with. Um, and where that, and I've come up with different schemes over the last couple of decades on how to manage efficiency on a job site, on a solar job site. And if I had to boil it down to one takeaway, it would be that it comes down to material handling. And specifically what I mean by that is, you as when you receive materials that you're going to be constructing on your job site, if you handle them more than once, there's inefficiency. And if I take something off a truck and stack it here, and then a week later come and I get some of it and move it over here, and then stage it, and then maybe a week later I start putting some of it on the racks, and every time I touch it, I'm adding cost and inefficiencies. And so the and this is more of an art than a science, because it's going to depend on your laydown areas and the specific topographies of your job site. But finding a way to handle the material as few times as possible. I talked to my PMs and my project executives about this. What I want, and I want to be 6 feet tall. That's not going to happen. So, but it's good to have a goal, right? And so what I want is, I want the stuff to arrive on a truck and get installed on the array and walk away. That's my ideal, with a QC inspector and an IV curve trace tester following me around. Um, that's not practical at times. Most of the time, that's not practical, but that's the goal. You want to get as close to that as possible. And so you can do it. There's different ways to do it, and a lot of, especially larger uh, renewable energy projects are staged, where you'll go out with your civil guys, and they'll start, and then your mechanical guys will come in behind them and start putting in piles, and then your racking guys behind them. But you can do it in waves, and moving the people around efficiently so they're not in each other's way. But the other side of that argument is, you don't ever want anybody waiting. And so ideally, my civil crew moves right out of the way as my pile driver comes in. And my pile driver's crew pulls out of the way right as my racking crew comes in.
Mhm.
And again, it's a lot of art to that, because it depends on how's your site laid out. Is it one contiguous site? Is it several broken up sites? How far apart from each other are there? Is there common laydown areas? All of those things need to be factored into it. But the best jobs I've ever done in terms of schedule and performance, we got close to only handling materials once.
That's amazing. Like I can only imagine, um, especially at scale when you're talking about the amount of, time being wasted
Mm-hmm.
and resources being wasted. Because I look at that when talk about efficiencies, handling something one time, think about chores in your own household, moving in groceries or even working around your kitchen, how things are
Right.
laid out, how much time can be wasted. But then when you're talking about several trades and huge job sites, you can only imagine how that adds up in multitudes. So that's
And the other thing, and this really starts hitting the bottom line, is when you're not doing a good job of field inventory management, because that's a big cornerstone of handling things once. But if your field inventory management system's not good, you lose parts. I've
right.
and every time I tell this story, I question myself because it sounds ridiculous. But I've had crews lose 40-foot torque tubes. Like, how do you lose a 300-pound, 40-foot long tube of steel, or several of them?
Takes
And
a lot of
and
skill to do that.
it's not in anybody's lunchbox, I'll tell you that.
Oh
So,
man.
yeah, you can do yourself a ton of favors by having that efficiency planning and that field inventory management, and it will also jump up and bite you really quickly if you don't have those.
Right, certainly. Okay.
And a
So
lot of these parts, that torque tube story, it's not like we could run down to Home Depot and buy another torque tube,
no,
right?
not at all.
It's coming from China, probably.
Yep, custom made.
Yeah.
Okay, Colin. Um, so as far as like permitting, land ownership, and environmental reviews, in
hmm
construction they can be super long and complex. Sometimes involving different state and federal layers.
hmm
How much waste do you see coming from those processes?
So there's a fair bit. I'm dealing with a project right now where uh, part of the job site is county land, part of the job site is city land, and getting them to the hardest part is getting them to talk to each other. Um, that is a whole different monster though, because we don't have direct control over it. I can't go to the city, XYZ city council and say, "Hey, get your act together and sign these documents." They take a dim view of that. um, but we can try to influence it and anticipate it. But where you come into it now with the commissioning and permitting and inspection side of it, yeah, I've been pretty successful with that. And it comes down to having a good rapport with the AHJ and a lot of communication. But when it comes down to like site control, for example, that's the situation I'm dealing with right now. The city's like, no, that's the county, and the county's like, no, that's the city, and really nobody wants to make a decision because nobody wants to get in trouble for having made the wrong decision. And even though this decision's actually very simple, nobody wants to own it, and that can be a difficult aspect of renewable construction. Uh,
Right, right.
that's actually not unique to renewables at all. That's just dealing with municipalities.
Certainly. Okay. So as far as like delays go, what have you seen? Are we talking like weeks, months, years?
They're different. They come in different categories, and so delays from waste and inefficiency. I've seen it. I've seen like the losing the torque tubes. Yeah, that added 9 weeks, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we had to. I mean, they were custom built to this certain racking. They were metric. They were galvanized. They were all these things that you couldn't just go get. Even if we thought about manufacturing those torque tubes because we had a shop where we could have done it, but we'd have had to send it to Mexico to get galvanized.
Right. So when you talk about a 9 week delay, what do you think that ended up being worth in dollars?
Oh gosh. So that project ended up running into LDs, and it was it was at least six figures.
Oh man.
It was at least six figures. Yeah, not a good thing.
No, not at all. Jeez. Okay. So working in a desert climate at elevation, that must
hmm
add another layer of complexity. Dust storms and water scarcity, I'm sure that all
So
drives up unexpected
water
costs.
scarcities, yeah, water scarcity is a real thing. We have to plan for that in the early stages of the project design, even just for dust control.
Right.
And then if you're doing a project like we also do ammonia and hydrogen electrolysis, and your water source is critical. You know, the great thing about building a facility like that here in the Southwest, you got great sun. You know, we've got the best sun in the some of the best sun in the world, but we don't have a lot of water.
Right.
And so we have some partners that specialize in using like produced water from wells or, and I mean oil wells, petroleum wells. So we, of course, that's not, you can't take produced water from a petroleum well and throw it into a electrolyzer and make hydrogen. It would last about a minute before it crashed. You have to do quite a bit of cleaning up of the water. Another water stream that we'll take advantage of is municipal wastewater, like the effluent coming out of a water treatment plant. It's still not clean enough to make hydrogen from, but it's closer.
Right.
And so we can do that. In New Mexico, there's a lot of mining in New Mexico, and a lot of the mines have to be dewatered, right? So if you don't pump them out, they fill up with water, and that gray water that comes out of those mines can also be utilized as well. So we try to use non-potable sources wherever we can. Uh, and we've even had deals where uh, companies will pay us to take their water
Hmm.
rather than paying to take the water. Yeah. But it's usually crappy water.
That's terrific, though. I mean, you got to be resourceful when you're in the desert, and it
Yeah.
sounds like you guys are doing quite well. So, that's absolutely eye opening as well. But how does would you say the cost per megawatt compare with, say, less harsher regions?
So we're probably a little higher. New Mexico's not a very expensive labor state, so that helps. Southwest in general, Colorado, Utah, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, even Nevada, the labor costs aren't huge. If for comparison's sake, we pay a lot more for labor in a state like Illinois,
Right.
that's heavily union driven, and there's pluses and minuses to doing that too. But where the Southwest has some harsher conditions. You mentioned that we're at elevation. I'm sitting at 7,000 feet right now. You do have to factor that into your design. For example, you have to transformers and inverters. You have to check their altitude rating because at a certain altitude they're actually out of spec
Hmm.
because the air is so thin that it can't reject as much heat.
Right. That makes sense.
And so you have to take that into account. And then because we're in a location where there's four seasons, we're very aware of the premium that you pay either in the very very hot months or the very very cold months.
Yeah. I imagine there's some pretty big swings down in New Mexico.
Mm. Yeah, you can get in the 100 to in the winter you can have highs in the single digits.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's some interesting weather patterns for sure.
right.
Okay, so call it on the flip side. What solutions, whether process improvements, new technologies, or leadership approaches, are you guys seeing that actually work to reduce waste before it even happens?
So we try to do we employ Six Sigma, like maybe not to the black belt level, but Six Sigma uh, uh, procedures and mentality. And we'll do spaghetti diagrams and walk through material handling flows before the construction starts. So that pre-planning helps a lot. And then you have to have, like, it needs to be part of your weekly review.
Right.
Is this working? Is there some place where this is falling down? And then when we do find those things, and you always do, I solicit I solicit solutions from the people closest to it first. My material handlers, my electricians, my laborers. And I tell them the objective. Hey, I want to handle this once. How can we put some of these activities together? And a lot of times the best answers come from the guys who are closest to it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that does sound very promising. Do you see that as scalable across the industry, or is that something that's
Oh,
too early?
sure. You kind of have to have a group of people who are open to the solution. And I bring that up because there are people in my profession as an engineer. There are plenty of engineers out there that don't want to listen to a laborer because, well, I'm the engineer, right? I went to school, la la la. I don't care about that. I care about the best solution. And if the janitor has the best solution, I'm gonna use it and run with it.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
So, Colin, this is just a question I'd like to ask every one of our guests.
sure.
If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the industry, or specifically solar, what would that one thing be?
No matter what I say, I'm gonna want to change it later on. So I'll just
We'll have
I'll just
another episode.
okay. There you go. Um, I think right now, I mean, there's the obvious answer, right? Of the big beautiful bill, getting rid of the investment tax credits and all that. If I could turn that around, I would. Um, that's kind of the obvious big one that everybody would probably say. The smaller one would be to shorten up the permitting and interconnection process. There are states like New Mexico where there's a renewable portfolio standard that they're trying to achieve, but the utilities, they're not being pushed to make that happen. And I've worked for several utilities. Uh, but what I can tell you is utilities generally love solar that they own.
Hmm.
If they don't own it, they tend to be more obstructionist than not.
Okay. I can understand that. What measurable difference do you think we'd see in 5 years?
Oh, if you could streamline the permitting and interconnection process, you'd be able to have developers reach that, right? They call it DTI, decision to invest. You could have them reach that much sooner, and that would allow projects to happen or not happen and get discarded in a timely manner. I mean, we're dealing with several big developers right now. I can think of one that we talked about this morning, and they've been trying to get this project approved for permitting for 3 years already.
Oh, wow.
This is before they've spent a lot of money, but they haven't spent any money on design yet because it's not approved.
Hmm.
And so we're saying that, hey, we want to lower the carbon footprint of the country, and we want an environment that our children can inherit and live in, and then we're not actually putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah,
You know,
I can totally see that.
there's this big push for data centers right now, AI and cryptocurrency data centers, and the big limiting factor is the amount of power available. Well, we're looking at three of them right now, and these are all gigawatt plants. These are all anywhere from the smallest one we're looking at is 1.5 gigawatts, and there's one that's 14 gigawatts. And you're not going to, it is hard for me to reconcile in my head that you're going to be able to put up 14 gigawatts of new fossil fuel generation or new nuclear generation without running into all kinds of opposition. I realize that the current administration is encouraging that kind of development. I just don't know that it's a long-term. I feel like it's probably not a good long-term solution.
Right. So if you were to, you know, utilize solar to provide that kind of power, what kind of like square
Mm-hmm.
footage would you be thinking of?
Oh, so we're looking at the one that the big one, the 14 gigawatts.
Hmm.
We're looking at 15 to 20 square miles.
Oh wow, that's massive.
Yeah, it's like I want to say it's 4 or 5,000 hectares.
Oh
It's
man,
it's not in it's not in the U.S. So,
oh okay,
um,
really? That's
yeah,
that's pretty mind blowing to think of.
yeah. I mean,
Okay,
it's an ocean of solar,
right,
but it's in a location that is sand. It's desert. It's just sand desert.
right. So may as well use it, right? May as well use
Yeah,
that
and
real estate.
give the horny toad some shade and make everybody happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay. So speaking of, potential projects, Colin, what project are you guys currently most proud of right now? One that might really show what's possible when things go
So
right.
this is still in design phase, but there's a project with a municipal co-op, a rural co-op that's going to include solar power, battery for life extension or day extension of the power generation, hydrogen electrolysis, hydrogen storage, and then hydrogen to electricity conversion through linear generators. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow this co-op to become the first completely energy independent co-op in the country. They'll be a net exporter of power, not a net importer of power.
I love
And
it.
that's kind of cool. I mean, that gives a lot of power and autonomy to these small rural communities. It's a path forward to that instead of just being at the end of the food chain and having to take whatever scraps fall off the table to them. They can
Absolutely.
kind of dictate their own future now.
Right. Are there many requirements to install one?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's quite a bit to it. I mean, anytime you're dealing with hydrogen is it's not new. The hydrogen conversion through a linear generator, that's kind of new. That technology is fairly new, but it's not a combustion process. Um, it's a non-combustion conversion of the energy. So it's got a very, very small carbon footprint.
Right, right. Oh,
And
that's
so that's
wonderful.
pretty interesting. Anytime you're dealing with hydrogen, there's some exciting things about it, and then some things that are just really well understood, and you deal with them.
Absolutely. Okay. So, now that we're kind of getting to kind of some of the techie things, looking at the next 5 to 10 years, what innovation trends do you think will reshape renewables?
So my what I've been paying most attention to lately has been battery technology. The modules are growing. I saw something here last week that somebody had a single panel that was over a kilowatt now, which is just mind blowing. Um, but I don't think that curve is gonna get that curve's gonna get less steep. The module improvements, the battery improvements are very interesting. There's some new chemistries out there that are available. We were looking at one 2 weeks ago that is a new proprietary chemistry from a company in Dubai, and it has like 12x the energy density, and it can't catch fire.
Oh
And
wow.
just some interesting things like that. Uh, there's a CO2 battery, really interesting company. If you're ever interested in looking at it, called Energy Dome. They have a CO2 battery that's just really cool in terms of these things can kind of run forever. They're big infrastructure investments, but they don't require the augmentation that a traditional like lithium ion battery would require.
Right, right,
And it's you're basically compressing CO2 and then letting it expand through a turbine. There's nothing to catch fire.
right. Oh, that's
So
very
I
interesting.
think battery technologies are going to make renewables a lot more prevalent and useful, uh, especially because using the batteries on the shoulders of the solar day can really help with the grid stabilization.
Right. Okay. That's fabulous. Can't wait for some of those things to come into full
They're
scale
happening
and
now. Yeah, they're
right.
happening now. We're actually looking at one of those batteries for a project now.
Oh, seriously, that's cool.
Hmm.
Okay, Colin. Um, so just another question here. What challenge are, as far as growing as a company with Somos, what challenges are you guys currently navigating, and how are you guys approaching them?
So a lot of this will be probably true for most everybody listening, but the biggest challenge right now is financing because of the big beautiful bill's impact on certainty, right? Uh, Even with the big beautiful bill coming out in July, since July there have been a dozen new interpretations of it. I talked to some friends in the industry that are based in Washington D.C., and some of them say we don't know what's going to be what we're going to wake up to tomorrow. It's going to
Hmm.
be maybe a whole new set of rules, maybe not. And I'm not a finance guy, but my experience is that financial markets do not like uncertainty.
Right.
So the more
Okay.
uncertainty that there is, the harder it is to get things bid or not bid, but financed. We had several projects that we had won that got withdrawn because they had to go through a reevaluation on their finances.
Hmm. Colin, for some
So
of our listeners who aren't familiar, could you share a little bit about what the upcoming bill consists of?
so the big beautiful bill, which was I believe signed, went into effect in July. Uh, it's accelerating the phase out of the investment tax credits. And so there's been a lot of churn over this, but essentially the latest direction that we have gotten from legal is that there's now there's a few ways to qualify a project for investment tax credits. There's a short time frame in which to do that, and then the projects have to be completed by December 31st, 2027, to get the tax credits. And what does the renewable world look like January 1st, 2029? Nobody knows.
Right. Yeah, like you said, it could change tomorrow, right? You
Yeah,
never know.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you could have a new administration come in 28 and uh, reinstate the tax credits. I
Right.
don't know.
That's gotta be somewhat relieving. Not at all.
Well, that's a nice. It's a nice thought.
Yeah.
I don't think we can count on it.
No kidding. No kidding. Okay. Colin, before we wrap things up, just a couple more little notes here. Um, So if you weren't in renewables or solar, what else do you think you'd be doing instead?
Well, are you asking that as far as what else am I qualified to do?
No, it's
Or
personal question. It's just
where would my heart take me?
where would your heart take you?
I've been an athlete all my life. I still compete, and the most rewarding thing I've ever done is coaching. And so I would probably be in some form or other. Actually, I kind of consider my job coaching now, but I would be in some sort of athletic coaching probably.
Oh, I love that. It's always great to give back.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Colin, I want to give you the floor here. Is there a message you'd like to leave with our listeners? Where they can connect with you or Somos Solar online?
Somos dot solar. It's not .com, it's .solar. Um, Somos means we are in Spanish. And so we're actually rebranding next year to Somos Energy Solutions. And our goal is to bring the most appropriate renewable energy solution to your project, as opposed to trying to make your project fit the one thing that we offer. So we do pumped hydro, we do geothermal, we're even working on a partnership with small nuclear reactors right now. And so we're trying to find energy solutions that are the best for a given project. And that's not going to be one set of solutions. So we have an extensive partnership network. You can find us on LinkedIn. And we are more than happy to collaborate with people. We do occasionally take a development position where we'll bring the money to a job, and then partnerships on jobs, all of that, all the way down to the traditional just EPC work.
Right. That's absolutely phenomenal. I love that. Being able to provide custom work in your guys' offerings.
Mm-hmm.
Colin, this has been an absolutely insightful conversation. Your story and your perspective on what's really behind Project Waste and Renewables. It's going to give leaders across the industry practical takeaways, and I look forward to sharing with them. So, thanks
Great.
again to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of the Advisory AI Solutions podcast. And until next time, scale the ordinary and automate the extraordinary.